When I was surveying independent insurance agencies and where they are in the, let's call it the rush to AI versus the reality into AI, right? The rush into AI, so this is what we got back. There's 3 categories, right? So what percentage of independent insurance agencies have used artificial intelligence in some form inside their business, right? 3%, Mike. 83% have used it in some form or another. 73% felt like or had identified that they had some productivity gain, right? In many instances, they're blank. Hey, it doesn't take me as long to write out that email. I'm able to quickly do a policy review faster than I was able to do before. Items like that on the productivity side. But just barely 10% of them were seeing an actual return on investment. Meaning, right? ROI, return on investment. Money in, return back, right? Hey, Mike, good afternoon. Another fantastic, fully packed week of working with independent insurance agencies and all of the helping them scale beyond their wildest dreams and unlocking a bunch of potential that wasn't out there, combining with all that we can do, right? Not without its trials and tribulations as anything else, but at the same time, learned a ton, seeing some great movement. What did you think about the week ahead or the week that we just came from?
Yeah, and you're doing great things out there, Daniel. Thanks for being on the road this week, just helping independent insurance agents. And I know you helped a lot of people think differently than they've ever thought before. And that's partly, our goal is to not only help agents and agency leaders think differently than they have before, but to simplify, right? Because as agencies scale and as they grow, sometimes they want to make it more complex. But that's not necessarily always the answer. And so our encouragement for everybody today is just that all of you're not behind. It's just time to turn it up maybe in a different way, right, Daniel?
Absolutely. And that is a great segue into what our topic is today, especially after everything that we learned as we went up, as we went along between going to associations and going along with others. You're not behind is the theme today. You're not behind, you just can't see it, right? So the idea here is that most agencies don't feel behind because they're failing. They feel behind because of lack of visibility. And when I was talking to a number of independent insurance agencies at the recent conference, right? When I started showing them some of the ability to see not only KPIs, a profit dashboard, their workflow visibility, when they saw that they could have predictable analysis and having a lot of these forward outlooking numbers to make reactions rather than what's happening behind them, that was where the aha moments came to them. And so by having that access to that information, by already having some of the numbers and things in place, they started to realize they're really not behind. They just couldn't see the progress that they're making because it just feels like they're behind. They need to be able to see where they are. And not only that, but by seeing what's out in front of them, they can also see where are those places that we could scale, where we could put our finger on the button to drive even further rather than always having to try to catch up to places that don't seem to be at the metric that they want to be at for that particular time. So that was very enlightening on that standpoint. And also, Mike, I want to give everyone here a little bit of a glimpse into a survey that just came out not that long ago. When I was surveying independent insurance agencies and where they are in the, let's call it the rush to AI versus the reality into AI, right? The rush into AI, so this is what we got back. There's 3 categories, right? So what percentage of independent insurance agencies have used artificial intelligence in some form inside their business, right? 83%, Mike. 83% have used it in some form or another. 73% felt like or had identified that they had some productivity gain, right? And many instances are blank. Hey, it doesn't take me as long to write out that email. I'm able to quickly do a policy review faster than I was able to do before. Items like that on the productivity side. But just barely 10% of them, we're seeing a actual return on investment. Meaning, right? ROI, return on investment. Money in, return back, right? Only
Daniel,
10%.
Did you say 10%?
10% was what based on that survey.
Wow.
Well, that tells me that everyone is starting to feel like they're behind. That, because when people were coming up to me, they're like, I just feel like so many people are ahead of us. I feel like so many people are out, are doing all these things. Agencies are doing these things, and I'm going to get left behind. And it was more like, no, I just don't think that you see. This survey helps to show, hey, yeah, a lot of people are using it. They're not maximizing it yet, right? And now this is a great place to look at our workflows. Let's look at our numbers. Let's look at from a forward instead of always from the back, and that will show you how to get the greatest return on investment, just from an AI and automation side, right?
Amazing. So clarity of your future, your vision, right?
Yep.
Because knowing your destination is all you need to get there.
Right.
And so, there's a lot of agents, and I remember seeing some information from Reagan and multiple other resources out there. They were talking about people that are, in the production realm and the agency realm that are tech forward and non-tech forward. And the revenue spread gap was pretty big.
Right.
But in addition to that, some of their data showed that these were the percentage of agencies that were thinking about AI. But what I did not see in my research that they've actually done anything with it. And you just supported the fact that, no, they haven't. 10%.
Right.
So that's the great thing, except there are a chosen few who made the decision to take control of their future. And that's why we're so privileged, to run alongside independent insurance agents, because just this week, one of the exciting things that happened this week is one of our member agencies, their dashboard went live. So those numbers, their key metrics, their KPIs that will drive their business forward are now live. So now we know exactly what needs to be done to reach their goals, to reach beyond their goals, and everything that's working within their business is live right in front of them. So that's great job. Great job by you and your team.
No, appreciate that. Yeah. And it was really fun to be able to, accumulate the vision of where they are today, but also where we can go based on those numbers. And I think that was one of the biggest motivating drivers is like, wow, your perception of how you thought the month and the last quarter went, right? Because you're thinking of things from what was looking behind, right? From reactionary numbers to, if you look at them from a proactive standpoint, to say, hey, if these numbers stay the same or grow, you will outpace what you thought you were going to be able to do anyways based on these core metrics, right? Instead of and ones that we can make predictive analysis on. And so I'll give you some of the ones that we were talking about. Not necessarily with this agency that you're referencing, but some other ones that we did, as far as like, okay, well, Daniel, what do you mean by predictive analysis? Well, it's saying, well, hey, if you have 1,000, I'll just, for easy math, right? You have 1,000 clients, right? That all have 2 or less policies let's say on the personal line side, right? On 2 or less policies. And we know that we have to, of those 1,000, right? We can, with all certainty, say 50% of them we can do an account review in 2026, right? So now we have 500, right? And we know that, hey, we can cross-sell and close another half of those, right? So 250 are going to add another policy, right? A second or third policy to it. And then you can figure out what your average sale and your average lifetime value of that client looks like, right? Based on some of the data that we have. And with all predictability for the rest of the year, we can continue to change to say, okay, our goal is this 1,500, 250 with this average sale, right? That's what we're going to. And then as the numbers come in, we can adjust to say, what would 12 months look like, or the rest of this 9 months look like, or right? on where we're going to be if these numbers were to continue, or if we're, and then, or you can also say, hey, let's say we move it by 5% or 10%. What would that do to the numbers? And the beauty of AI and automation is you can use your strategic partner that you create in a custom GPT to allow you to make those adjustments without having to start a whole brand new dashboard all over again, right? Or figure out how to become an Excel wizard, or, you know, all those different pivot tables and everything that goes along with it. And I know we're geeking out about it, but it was such a powerful conversation to have, and seeing the energy lift differently, where they're felt they were plateauing isn't because that they're not mature as an agency itself. It's that their operating systems haven't matured at the same level that the agency has, right? That the workflows that they thought were in place and the standing operating procedures that they thought that they had in place up to this point had matured along with the revenue maturity of the agency. And that's where we started to find the gaps, right? It's like, well, we can't even move the needle and continue to increase and scale this because our workflows break as we start to do that, right? Or we haven't filled in the right gaps. So there's no place even to add AI and automation to those workflows because they weren't fully defined out to begin with, or they weren't mature to the level of where they wanted to be able to get to. And that allows us to refocus our work as well. So then it shows them like, hey, you could throw AI and automation at this if we wanted to, but it's only going to speed you up in the wrong direction, which is a previous podcast episode that they can listen to, right? But that is what we began to learn here this past week.
Yeah, and that's where the fix for the next level comes in, right? Because what are the signs that an agency has outgrown its systems, as an example? Okay? So when growth creates stress instead of strength, even though you're growing, that might be a sign. Okay? And why does fragmentation, as an example, accelerate as revenue grows? Because it adds complexity, right, Daniel?
Sure.
And when things get more complex, it compounds faster than it previously did if you don't make that intentional decision. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. People are making, especially as they scale till they get to 3 million revenue, 4 million revenue and up, it also causes them to take a peek under the hood and find out really what's going on in the agency. And it really seems to fall back to the system many, many times. Is it not, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, the term that we've heard recently is that you can't see the label when you're inside the box, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where this starts to come from, is we can't even see really what's going on within those systems, what's fragmented. If we're just living inside the stress, right? If we're living inside the box and all inside of it, we can't step behind it and start to look, or in front of it and start to look at, okay, well, where's that stress coming from? Let's look at our workflows. Let's look at this, because you're still in that system and inside that workflow instead of being able to see it from the outside.
Yeah, and many times it just creates a reactive culture versus a proactive culture, right?
Yes.
And you can't get to scale because that just, when you create more complexity and you create the culture of reactivity, you're just running on the hamster wheel, as we say. And the real cost of that, though, when agencies get to that, leadership starts to burn energy. And then, unfortunately, burnout and frustration and everything else sets in. And that can be a real danger area. And that's why it's important to have that complete operating system in place. You know, I heard one this week, Daniel. Revenue growth without system growth always feels like you're falling behind. And our encouragement for everybody here is, no, if you feel that way at all, you don't need to feel that way, because it might just be one or two adjustments to your entire operating system that can make all of the difference. What else did you hear from the agency trenches out there this week, Daniel?
You know, a lot of the same similar themes of where everyone is still trying to identify what are the right tools, and there seems to be all of this really cool stuff coming out all the time, and there's some really great products out there in the domains, in the insurance domain space, on being able to insert themselves in those workflows without having to hire more people, without having to necessarily completely overhaul the agency, but what are the right tools and what's the right time and how do I connect them together and what are the limitations? And these are all what's going in their mind. And then when we start to ask questions, one was a really fun roundtable where they kind of put me to the test, which I always appreciate, of like, hey, let's look at this. Let's seriously sit down and say, okay, if you're saying that you want to start saving some time or saving some area in the service end of it, show me what a service, what's the step-by-step process when a service ticket comes in from multiple different locations, right? Or how do they get? And we're going through it together on ways that we can create speed with efficiency and make a revenue impact is the greatest way to get return on investment, right? And they were testing me with all these different workflows that they had. And it was really fun to be able to show them that the biggest gaps always seem to be in as you mentioned, fragmentation. 2 CSRs, 3 CSRs, whatever's within the organization, and all 3 of them, although it appears that they're all doing it the same way, are actually doing it differently, skipping steps. Just like, we'll just do it this one time, or I want to go find a tool and I'm going to pick my own tool that I'm going to do in my process. And then at the end of the day, they're like, well, how did we get here? Right? How do we unwind this? Like, how do we get everybody using the same tools? Right? And so being able to slow down and take a step back, because they can calm down a little bit. We are not behind in the market. We're not behind on where we want to go at. It just feels that way because we're not able to see the whole box, right? We're only seeing what's inside the box. And now we have this feeling because there's tons of demos out there. There's all these tech conferences. There's all these things going on and all these podcasts and episodes and everything saying AI, 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 right? But not coming up with the right use cases, not coming up with the right tech stack, analysis. And also, like, are the people using it going to be, is it going to fit within their day to day? Like all these things that we have to slow down and start to look at that. And that's when their heads start nodding up and down of like, you're right, I can take the time, right? I can take the time. And having these strategic partners called custom GPTs, right? And these, who's best at helping make strategic decisions? AI, right? And so they skip the step of helping build out those powerful tools for themselves to try to look for easy to connect tools to make like one roll fast, 1 hour savings here, 1 hour savings there. And that's why I believe that most of these agencies aren't seeing return on investment. They're trying to throw more tools at a particular problem instead of actually looking at what's broken in the problem, right? And one of my favorite questions to continue to ask is, if I told you could double your business tomorrow, what would break?
What would break?
That's where we identify, where the workflows aren't going to scale, right? You hustled at 1 million, right? To get yourself to 1 million, you survive on hustle. 3 million to start building a process. Once you get past 3 million, right? Or once you're at 3 million, you want to get to 5 to 10, you have to start adding automation. You have to start getting a leadership rhythm, right? But if you don't look at the processes you built as you got to 3 and figure out where it's going to break before we get to 10, that's when things go off the rails. So we have to start looking at what that looks like.
Yeah, and I heard that swirling around a lot this week and identifying it and working with agencies. Structure. You've got to have structure. The bigger you get, the more you have to have that systematic structure. Well, you don't have to do anything, but if you choose not to, you're going to be operating with more complex chaos, if you will, in many situations. I heard something else along these lines this week. Why does more staff sometimes increase overwhelm? Because, we hear a lot of agency owners, I'm just going to hire more people. Well, the thing is, if you don't have the structure and the agency operating system in place, adding more people without that structure and process, it's just going to multiply the confusion and sometimes the chaos, right? So right. It's important to, and the other thing this week that I saw a lot of, Daniel, leadership. It's really back to leadership. And is leadership elevating themselves as they continue to scale and grow up those levels from 1 million to 3 million to 4 million to 5 million? Is leadership keeping up in their leadership abilities to operate at that level. And that's why the sweet mix of the right people along with the right AI technology and automation system, when combined, becomes so powerful.
Right. What tips you off when you know that leadership bandwidth is the constraint?
Well, one of the strategies that I use all of the time is to ask questions. And so I position them and I find out a little bit about their tech stack, our basic tech stack, right? Tell me about your AMS, your CRM, your phone system, at a minimum. And what do you believe about technology? Okay. Do you believe it's better to hire another person or add the right technology to your entire operating system? And if their answers are the right answers there, then that tells me that leadership is thinking in the right way about the future. Because the answer is not always adding another person, with all due respect. It's adding the right technology and maximizing the ability of automation, AI, and technology to support the human existence.
Right.
So the thing that I also learned this week in my development to better help agencies, you see, machines remove friction. Leadership designs capacity. And humans are the one that build the trust. And that's where the right operating system, when blended all together in the right way, with the right people, the right leadership, and the right guidance in that realm, along with the right AI automation technology tools like what you do, Daniel, as part of ELSA, becomes so incredibly powerful.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we didn't want to skip this week. Mike and I were just filled with not only our Onyx membership and everything and all the different parts we have going there. Plus, we were traveling and going to a couple shows to talk about what's going on in AI and automation and cybersecurity. So we only had a few minutes, but we wanted to get on really quick and express to everybody what we learned, keep the conversation going, keep that out there to say, look, you're not behind. You just need to start looking at the problem differently and looking at your workflows. And that if we can start to look at your numbers from a predictive analysis going forward, rather than always looking from the past and what the past looks like compared to where we're at right now, that is where you can start to find yourself in a scaling situation. And so real quick, if you would ever like to learn more about what's going on in the Onyx world, what's going on in the agency scaling world, going from how to get to the next $10 million agency, please join us for one of our masterclass. We'll put the link in the show notes. And then if you ever wanted to have a one-on-one private session with Mike and I about specifically on how you could scale beyond your wildest dreams and what your agency looks like and how we would coach you and work with you on how you would get there, feel free to also join one of our Onyx scaling sessions. Again, the link will be in the show notes, and we love to learn from you and also learn about you and what we can help you with. So Mike, thanks for hopping on real quick and having a great conversation. I look forward to having our conversation again next week.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for all you're doing for agents out there everywhere. And I want to encourage everybody, you're not falling behind. You may not be able to see it yet, and that's okay. That's why we like to jump on scaling sessions or even get people to masterclass so we can teach them the things to be looking for and to lead them along the way. So Daniel, thanks for making the time. Hey, we just don't miss, right?
That's right.
And we don't want people to miss out on any incredible opportunities that are always there before them. So Daniel, safe travels to you. Keep on winning curling tournaments. The champion that you are, you and your team.
Thanks,
great job on that, by the way.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the support, and I look forward to talking next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.